All right.
This meeting is being recorded.
All yours, Dr. Childs.
All right. So I'm calling the meeting to order, and I think I have to read this because it's an executive meeting. I mean, a remote meeting. On Thursday, March 12th, 2020, Governor Baker issued an order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 38, section 20. That order was effective immediately until it is rescinded. The state of emergency is terminated. On July 17, 2022, by the action of the legislature, the order was extended until March 31, 2023. So let me just call the roll. Welcome, everybody. Eric Beckerman.
Here.
Paul Connors.
Here.
Joe Reardon.
Here.
And Elizabeth Childs. And Carl Balduff has resigned from our committee. He's no longer on the committee. So we are a committee of 4 right now. We'll have to replace Carl and Joe. Maybe you and I can talk about that. And Joe Reardon. Yep.
No one can be replaced.
No one can be replaced. That is so true. So we do have a quorum.
You're gonna have a retirement party for him?
Oh, he's still on the advisory board, right?
Absolutely.
Good.
My man.
Good. We'll have to acknowledge him at our September meeting.
There you go.
So our budget, our agenda tonight is very basic, very straightforward. We've got to do the budget transfers for FY23 and 2 sets of minutes if we can get to them. So John Cronin, are you going to present the FY23 transfers for us?
I will be happy to start, Dr. Childs. Joining us are our friends from the Norfolk County Agricultural High School, John Wallace, John Martin. If I follow the same path I took earlier today with the commission, I'll give you all a brief overview of what you can expect from these transfers. I know John Wallace would be happy to answer any questions. We'll start with the schools if you have any, and we'll move down from there. So this evening, during this unusual midsummer advisory board meeting, it's become a necessity to conduct this business prior to the September meeting for reasons involving the approved FY23 budget. In the case of the schools, John will explain that they've recently come to terms with the teachers union, and as a result of those terms, the salaries and compensation levels associated with what was previously approved has changed to the tune of $260,071.82. Following that school piece, the second of the two involves the facility maintenance department. Members of the finance committee may recall that during the advisory board meetings in the spring, I alerted you that I will be back soon once the bidding rights associated with workers who have been previously notified as being temporary workers in FY22, as the commissioners assess the impact of possible consolidation of the Abrahams Group recommendations. Once that process kind of worked out, the commissioners determined no consolidation within facilities was needed. They moved to appoint these individuals permanent, but they're all members of a collective bargaining AFSCME unit who have bidding rights. We didn't know on May 11th where each of those workers would land. Well, we do now. So what we had done in FY23 to begin this process was put monies associated with these temp workers in a separate line. Your actions this evening, actually, will be to move those funds up into permanent as needed. And then finally, the newly created Information Technology Department, the appropriation included a salary which was estimated at the time to fund the new CIO. God bless you. The new CIO, and we have come to understand that the market costs associated with a candidate that we have an interest in would not be able to be met with the existing funding level. So we're recommending it be increased from $129,067.40 up to $145,000. Those are the 3 transfer issues. Beneath each one, happy to answer any questions, but in the interest of brevity, I thought I'd just give you that introduction, Dr. Childs. After speaking with Mr. Wallace and Mr. Martin, I think they would appreciate the schools go first.
Yes, that would sounds good. Okay, so let's go to the schools. I don't know, Which one of you would like to start? John or John?
Which John?
Which John?
This is John Martin. I'll just say good evening to everybody. And let you know that our contract negotiations with the teachers union were very productive. Everyone conducted themselves in a professional and courteous manner, and we're very pleased with the outcome. And that we've got a new 3-year deal ready to go for this coming school year. So we've ended the school year, and we will start this last school year on a good note. We'll start the new year on a good note.
Terrific. But we do need to, there is some money adjustment that needs to happen, correct, Mr. Martin?
That is correct. And John Wallace has those, and John Cronin both have those numbers. Then they can share them with you.
Okay, all right. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about the contract besides the adjustment in the dollars?
Our biggest get for the dollars that we are parceling out was a 6th period in the teacher's day.
Yeah.
Up until this point in time, Norfolk Aggie teachers were required to teach 5 out of the 8 periods during the day, which left a lot of students with holes in their schedules.
Mhm.
So our number one priority was to get that 6th period introduced into the day, and we were successful in doing so. So we will no longer have students in study halls. We will no longer have students unless we want them to in self-directed activities. They'll all be in front of teachers throughout the course of their school day.
Wonderful. Wow.
Very good. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we're really pleased. I think it bodes well, not only for our relations with the Teachers Association, but also for the future of the school. This was a huge stepping stone to get us further down the road and deeper into the 21st century and changing our way of looking at how we educate kids.
Okay, great.
Getting the negotiations is always extremely hard, so you did a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was a great team effort. John Wallace, our business manager, Robin Van Rotz, our principal, our attorney, Josh Coleman, and then 2 members of the boards of trustees were instrumental in making this happen. So take a moment to thank them as well.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, through you,
Yes, please.
to Mr. Martin, Superintendent Martin, which members of the trustees were helpful?
Dick Stady and Liz Smith were both on our team.
Great, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Great. Okay. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us, Mr. Martin, before we go to Mr. Wallace? I'm assuming he's going to explain the budget.
No, that was my preamble. So I've said
Okay.
all I needed to say tonight.
All right. Great. Thank you. All
welcome.
right. I think we're ready for John. You want to tell us
All
about
right.
the money situation?
Yeah, this was an adjustment that was fully expected. John Cronin and I, or John Cronin on our behalf, had previously spoken to Joe about coming up with a new proposed final budget that we would do in September. And that's, I think, on the schedule for advisory board. But because teachers start their new year on September 1st, and we could, through this process, avoid doing retroactive increases to teachers, and frankly, give them the deal they agreed to from day one, which I thought was the courtesy that we ought to show them. We just are taking the additional cost of the teacher's contract and just putting it in the buckets where it belongs. It's mostly in the salary lines, but there's a decent amount in stipends as well, because of the nature of the deal we made. There was a one-time payment, which is reflected in the stipends. So the stipend increases may be more than you would expect for a new contract, because about half of that money is a one-time payment that reflects moving from the 5th period to the 6th period, from teaching 5 to 6 periods, where we wanted to do something right up front, and they were supportive of that as well. So basically, I've just taken the contract and spread it across all the lines that it affected. Again, entirely salary and stipends. In some cases, monies did go down, but that wasn't the result of a negotiated reduction in anybody's pay. It was just based on changes in what the school intends to do since we put the budget together back in April, in case anyone's, wondering why there are negative numbers on this schedule as well as positive numbers. So I'm just reflecting all the known personnel changes at this time so that we can pay everybody from day one, which is beginning of September when their new rates kick in. The question is, how do we fund this? And the reality is that since we put our budget together, we've concluded our admissions of students of a freshman class, and the freshman class has more out of county students than we had planned when we put our budget together. It was probably a little bit of an oversight on my part to overestimate the in-county students in general in the school, and certainly the nature of that freshman class was a little bit different than we expected. We are operating under a system that includes in-county preference, but in-county preference doesn't mean you'll have the majority of students from in-county. It depends on how many applicants you get. And we did get more applicants from out of county than in-county, which is pretty typical for us these days or in recent years. So it just resulted in a class that had more out of county students than we were anticipating when we put the budget together. So there's room in the tuition to afford this teacher increase. This is just teachers. When we give you a brand new budget in September, it'll reflect all of the changes to personnel, because there'll be raises given to administrators, or let's say non-teachers as well. But right here, we're just trying to get the teachers portion approved so that we can pay teachers from day one the way they deserve and ought to be paid.
Okay, great. Questions? Eric, Paul, Joe?
No questions
Nope,
there.
all good.
I had one question. Does the 260,000 amount not include the other additions we're going to hear in September then, John? That's only
Yeah, there'll be one big other addition, which would be the non-teaching staff's raises or cost of living increases as appropriate. And then there'll be other changes. I mean, I don't want to overdo it and redo the whole budget and change every line. But if we have significant developments, I'm going to suggest that we include that in the budget that you guys approve or get a chance to approve in September. But this is by far the majority of the change related to salary. I think John and I did a summary of the total change, and I think this represents 250-ish of the $350,000 change. So the change in non-teacher personnel is relatively is a lot less significant than this, but that will be there, Dr. Childs, and other developments that we feel are significant enough to want to reflect in our second bite at the apple of budgeting.
okay. All right. Are the salary and stipend increases going to take up all the headroom we had with the increased tuition revenues?
No, that's a great question. Given the change in mix from tuition from in and out of county, I expect that we will have a greater surplus than we did in budget number one when we give you budget version number two. Despite these expense increases, I think we'll be able to more than afford those on the revenue side.
Okay. All right. Great. Okay.
That's
Any
great.
there's any other questions?
And for me.
Okay. All
Dr.
right.
Childs, just a quick
Yes,
remark,
John,
just
yes.
a quick remark to what John Wallace just referenced. I think the county, on behalf of supporting the schools, has to recognize that the structural changes that were made with the tuition increases are obviously yielding some positive benefits for the school. And as John pointed out, the reserve account that was developed back in May showed a decent favorable position for the schools to start FY 23. John, I can't recall the number, but it was over $300,000. He's just offered to us some information that suggests that the out-of-county kids came in a little stronger, so the reserve grows. And I think holistically, from a financial perspective, we should all take some breath here and realize that the more the reserve grows, the more it bakes in the ability for the schools to endure those years where what John described may be the reverse, where we may see kids that are more likely to be in county and not as much out of county. Flattening out those years through a reserve is the proper way to handle those peaks and valleys. There was one item that came up, John. I don't know if you don't mind. I hope you don't mind me just bringing this out very briefly during our year-end close discussion with Treasurer Bellotti and Assistant Treasurer Diaria. The city of Boston paid their FY22 assessment beyond the end of fiscal year 22. And that gain was quite substantial. And that gain will be presented when John comes back in September as another add into the reserve. Have I stated that accurately, John? And if you'd like to add any color to that, we would have seen a surplus in FY22, right? That would bounce, but in this case, it's getting booked to FY23. So I think you're going to see that reserve, that precious reserve the school needs for flexibility, be even more fortified. John, if you want to add any color to that.
Yeah, I think the reality is what you said. The payment wasn't received from Boston until after the end of the school year, despite the fact that we put in a pretty good effort to try to get that not to happen. It didn't go our way. So it's a little more than $450,000. It's more like $475,000. So it will be reflected as a matter of fact in FY23. I'm not sure though, John, whether I'm going to include that in the budget or just present a budget that reflects the actual realities of what happens in FY23 and not a one-time benefit that's going to come over from FY22. I haven't given that any thought. I'm pretty sure I know how to do. How I want to do it, but the reality is it will represent a wind in our sails in FY23.
It's certainly, John. I yield to that thinking. I guess my point was where it lands is a favorable landing spot. It's a plus number if it lands in your reserve, which right now has a favorable number, despite or even after these corrections or expenditures you're making tonight. The reserve is beginning to grow. We were not in this position a year ago, and that was the whole point. And I think that the progress is something the county finance committee needs to kind of process, that the trend is favorable. The reserve helps for a lot of operational purposes. And I just thought it was worth bringing out because we were all in deep thought about this a year ago and some progress has been made. Thanks, John. I appreciate that. And Dr. Childs, I'm good.
Okay, great. Can I just follow up on that conversation just for 1 minute? Is there any other place that we would use the surplus besides helping build the reserve? Is that not the number one priority? Am I correct about that? Or is there something else on the table even?
Is that a question for the schools, Doctor?
Yes, it's a question for the schools. Yeah, because the surplus can be used as we need to, correct? For whether it's repairs or offsetting a down year where we have a lot of in county and not so much out of county. Is that not correct? Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's a question really, I guess.
John and I look at it that way. We don't have a legal reserve that allows us to access that money in a future year. But John and I are certainly trying to run the school in the best way we can, and are not don't have plans right now of spending the reserve that we are, fortunate enough to predict. And frankly, we had a reserve last year in the end. FY21, we had a reserve. FY22, we did not have a reserve because we did not get that $475,000 at the end of the year, which would have provided us with a reserve had it come in the year that it was earned, or had we been able to accrue it, which neither of which happened. So John and I are not thinking yet about what we might do with reserves that we're building up. We understand that we're even the reserves we're talking about aren't really as big as we would like to have on a budget of $15 million. To have a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 reserve is nothing to brag about and thump our chests about. So I'm just gonna. John and I have not even considered what we would do with those monies. We do have capital, building needs that we're trying to address. And we've just been through a couple of rounds of building with the Mass School Building Association. So we're not exactly sure what the future holds in that area. We don't have a real pressing need, but we definitely feel like we have a need a couple years out, that we'll want to address. And that's probably the medium-term vision.
Right.
And the reality is, for the most part, we have a very old infrastructure there.
Yeah,
So.
it has a
there's-
lot of needs.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking we'd be fortunate if we were able to build a reserve, just because we're going to have a lot of expenses that we can't predict. So, yeah. And I don't know what the benchmark would be for a reserve on a $15 million budget. Some of you probably know better than I, but I mean, is a 3% or what's a typical here? What do we try to do for that kind of a thing?
I think both John Martin and John Cronin have their opinions, so I'll defer to them. John Martin has the school experience of what schools are shooting for,
Yeah.
and John Cronin, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, had floated a number of 5 to 10% as
5 to 10%.
as
Okay.
an annual reserve that he was hoping to achieve at some point.
Yeah. Is there a benchmark, John Martin? Is there, I'm curious about that for a school.
Yeah, that 5 to 10% number is an accurate one pretty much across the board.
Okay, great. So we have a ways to go.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, good. All right. Anything else from the school presentation?
No, we're finished. Thanks.
Okay, good. All right. Okay, I think, should we, don't you think we should vote this all at once? Don't you think we should discuss the maintenance first and then the IT department, and then go back and do the vote, the total vote? We can do the transfers one single vote, correct?
Correct.
Okay, fine. So let's do the maintenance department. John Cronin, you want to say anything else about the maintenance department?
Yeah, this will be very brief. As I mentioned, the maintenance department budget was funded in FY23 with 2 separate lines, permanent lines and temporary lines. When the budget was originally passed in May, I believe the total amount under temporary was approximately $161,000 to carry those individuals that had not yet been made permanent. That process, once you pass the budget, we had to then initiate the posting, the bid rights, and ultimately the awarding of the positions. We were able to move several individuals into existing vacancies based on the seniority. But generally what we're asking today is for the advisory board through you to move, $147,022.28 from the temporary line up to the permanent, so that the positions now can be funded in the permanent salary line box. I talked to Paul Connors earlier today. I think you folks know I respect your time. I'll give you whatever you want to know about who they were, what they're making. There's no point in trying to hide any of that. But for brevity, we've assessed that the financial impact is because this move is happening almost 2 months into the fiscal year. We've expended some money in the temporary line. So we need money out of the 161 still there to resolve those obligations. It's this 147,000, Dr. Childs and other members of the finance committee, that's got to move up. So it's as simple as that. You can take it in that holistic way, or if you have questions about who got bumped, we're here all night for you.
Okay, any of our members have questions?
Not for me.
You okay, Paul?
I'm fine.
Joe?
None. Make a recommendation that, a motion to recommend that we approve this for the full advisory board.
I
Okay,
have one more to go, Joe.
we have one more to,
I thought we were doing them all together, Joe.
yeah, the IT.
I'm sorry, my bad.
Hold
My bad.
on, just hold on till we get through the IT. Okay,
Too aggressive and efficient, my bad.
yes, you're very efficient. John,
No.
can you give us the IT lowdown?
Actually, you know what, Joe? We'll just blame Dennis Cohane for that one.
Oh, well, he's not there anymore. Now it's me.
Okay. Briefly, the technology budget for FY23, as I mentioned, was funded CIO position, $129,067.40. That number was sort of a legacy number that came over from the registry when that position was funded in FY22. We had not, as a consolidated technology unit, really understood the market of costs. So we kept it as a plug. And as you all know, when the consolidation was agreed to, we immediately drafted the job description, posted it. We had 14 resumes. Advisory board member Calcutt, as well as our human resources director, and I screened the candidates. We interviewed, I believe, 3 or 4 of them. What we observed globally, just broadly speaking, was that we got a lot of folks that were solid network administrator types that were looking to take that leap up to a chief information officer role. In other words, carrying and feeding of a system up to planning and policy making, right? There's a jump there. Solid candidates, was a pleasure meeting all of them. We ultimately did not find in the first round of 14 what we were looking for. We did broaden subsequently to that action, our search area, and we came upon a candidate that after 2 rounds, I want to mention, we've used advisory board member Chuck Phelan to help Michelle and I do the first and second round interviews of the candidates. The one that we have identified, which I'm going to keep for privacy reasons, unnamed at this point because we haven't signed anything, is by far the best candidate. He comes from the private sector. His situation is unique in that the company he works for is decoupling from Massachusetts and moving overseas for family reasons he chose not to pursue, but he is interested in the position. We've had verbal discussions about a target number for his salary. The $145,000 a year is the target number that we would ask your board to consider approving. And in so doing, the advisory board follows. We'll then move to initiate pre-employment screening, reference checks, and ultimately, if everything goes well, a blue paper and a start date. So this is the beginning of something that hopefully results in a chief information officer hire, but it starts with changing the budget number from 129,067 to 145. If I may, very briefly, because I like to channel Eric Beckerman in these conversations.
Very nice, thanks.
Eric, you understand the position has been unfilled since July 1st. That 11-week period has yielded a significant salary savings. In addition, once this individual, and by the way, I forgot to mention, the commissioners in their infinite wisdom determined about a month ago, early August, that we needed a interim chief technology officer, and they appointed that role to Dan Caparata, who is the existing network administrator for the registry. Dan, as you may know, has been with the county for over 8 years. He's got intimate knowledge of the systems. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy to work with. I will report in September on the status of the transition overall, but he and Mark have worked very collaboratively initially over the last 8 to 10 weeks, getting us ready. That action of interim status gave Dan Caparata the 129,067 salary just for this brief period of time between August 5th and what will be the start date of presumably sometime in mid-September. So Eric, when I ran the numbers, if you're looking at your approved FY23 budget right now, the total salaries were $333,394. When I adjust them out and I play out what Dan has been paid and what we expect to pay the new hire, I'm coming in at a total salary expenditure of $323,076. So even though the salary is going up, we are still going to save approximately $10,000 if everything goes according to plan. All right. Eric, it's the salary savings, just straight up. All right. That's all it was. So yes, annualized, and this came up earlier today with Commissioner Stady, annualized, yes, these salaries exceed what was budgeted for FY '23. I would expect in a little while when your advisory board convenes, there may be some questions about what does that mean for the technology budget next year, and I'd be happy to talk about some of the previous dialogue and plans that we're casting an eye towards for FY '24. But this evening, we're simply looking to correct the budget for FY '23 to move forward. Thank you.
Okay, questions for John on this?
Nope.
My question would have been how the transition is going, but John, you said you're gonna speak to it during the regular meeting.
Yes, I will, Paul. It's actually not on the agenda this evening. There is a tremendous amount to report. I think if I had to characterize things, I would say they're going according to plan. The advisory board and your board were very clear with the commissioners about what the intention was going forward. I think later on, you're going to hear from Chuck Phelan about his experience interviewing these candidates and what the county's really learned about what can be done positively going forward with that type of talent. But I'm going to avoid getting into any of the details, Paul, until September when it's properly posted, if you don't mind.
My mailman thanks you for keeping the mail down. It wasn't from your office.
Wow.
Okay. All right. Now I think we probably are ready for that motion.
So
Joe.
moved,
Okay,
Madam Chair.
yes,
Second.
Madam Chair, if I may, to the delight of your committee, possibly expedite your actions through
Yes.
you.
would you like to, yes, would you help us with the motion?
Between what John Wallace has explained, that's a total of $260,071.82. The facility maintenance department transfer is $147,022.28. And the amount for the transfer, an offset for the technology department is $145,000. In the aggregate, we would ask on behalf of the Finance Committee for a favorable motion to approve a total of $552,094.10 for offset and appropriation for the FY '23 budget as discussed.
Okay,
John,
yes,
I'll make that motion, but discussion on it.
okay. We have a motion and do we have a second?
Second.
Second,
All right.
John, do you
Discussion.
have to include that 129,067 in there? Because
It
it's already
is.
in the budget.
Where it's an offset, what we do on these reports, Paul, and I yield to you with your years of experience. The offset and the appropriation are a manner to show the total money movement. The form that Joe Reardon has, I believe it was delivered to his home this evening by Commissioner Collins, shows exactly which line these monies are moving in and out of. But the number I just expressed is the aggregated total amount, and I believe that's the practice of the county to express the total money movement. If I'm incorrect, please correct me.
I think that is correct, actually.
oh, it's correct.
And to answer your question, the 129 is inclusive of the 552, Paul.
Thank you.
Paul, does that take care of your question?
Yes, yep.
Okay. Other discussion, Eric, Joe, anything to add or anything clarification needed?
Nope.
Okay.
No, my only comment, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I defer
Please
to-
go right ahead. Go right ahead.
I'm sorry. My only comment is that the whole idea behind the consolidation of the IT is to have a more efficient and better managed system. And unfortunately, the way that the public sector works versus the private sector works is that the public sector tends not to pay at the same level. And in order to get someone who is of the quality that we need, I think that this particular offer is appropriate. And not only is it appropriate, it is actually going to help us move further down the road to create a better system for the county that is going to serve the residents of the county better. So that's my take on it.
Chairman Reardon, and through you, Chairwoman Childs, I made this remark to Commissioner Stady earlier today. I value the privacy of the individuals that have applied for this job that have not yet, we don't have anything in ink. In the event that any individual member of your committee wants to learn more about what Chairman Raridan just mentioned, i.e. the background, the reasons, the calculation, his existing, I'd be happy to talk to you individually, but I believe I will refrain from making public comments in this Zoom due to the nature of the privacy. So, but there, to your point, Chairman Raridan, you're right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, here. We want to get good quality into the public sector too.
Yes.
Right. Okay. All right, I think, is any more discussion?
Move the question.
Thank you. The question's been moved. All in favor of voting the question?
Aye.
All right,
I,
all right.
Madam Chair, with the Zoom situation, do we need to do that?
Oh,
by roll?
oh, you're right. I'm so sorry. Thank you very much. You guys are awesome. Keeping me out of the soup. Okay, we have to do a roll call. All right,
Sorry.
Mr. Beckerman,
Aye.
Mr. Connors,
Yes.
Mr. Rudin,
Yes.
and the chair votes aye. So it's unanimous approval of $552,094.10 for the transfer.
Thank you. Sorry.
We have
Sorry
two
about
ayes, two ayes and two yeses. Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Aye.
The translation's the same, Eric.
Joe Reardon, if I could ask, so I don't forget, at the conclusion of the advisory board vote, in the event it goes favorably, would you be so kind as to endorse the form? I don't know if it's in your possession, but Peter delivered it to you. It's been endorsed earlier today by the commissioners. We'll use that to have Phil Iantosker and the treasurer load the budgets once you endorse it. So if you can get it back to us in any form at your leisure, we'd appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Commissioner Collins delivered that in hand today to my home, although I'm not at home. I am told that it is there and I will sign it and send it back forthwith.
Awesome.
Peter could pick it up.
I think he rode his bicycle there, by the way, just so you know.
Joe, Peter could pick it up.
Well, on his bicycle, sure, I can do
All
that
right,
too.
Peter.
Oh, while he's in the neighborhood, he can walk around and shake some hands.
Why don't you take your bike over to Peter's?
He doesn't have a bumper
Yeah,
sticker.
no, I'm not gonna do that. Now, in fairness, Commissioner Collins grew up 2 streets away from where I live. However, he now lives further away and that's a little much for me. I couldn't do it. But if had to be done, I could do it, but I would take a car. It'll get done.
Out the orange line.
Not the orange line. The orange line will not be in motion pretty soon, so we can't do that.
All right. Minutes. Do we want to approve the minutes of the meeting of May 11th? Is there a motion for approval?
Motion to
So
approve.
moved. Oh, I'm sorry, second.
Second, okay. All in favor, Eric Beckerman,
Aye.
Paul Connors,
Aye.
Joe Reardon,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. The unanimously approved. Can I have a motion for the approval of the minutes of June 8th?
Motion.
Second,
Aye. I mean, sorry, second.
that's right. Okay.
Jumping ahead.
All those in favor, Mr. Beckerman,
Aye.
Mr. Connors,
Aye.
Mr. Reardon,
Aye.
the chair votes aye. Okay, any other topics that need to be discussed that we did not anticipate?
No.
That was
Madam
4 ayes.
Chairman, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Connors, you are correct. I'm sorry. I jumped ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, Mr. Connors, do you have something to report?
No, I'm gonna invite at the advisory board, I'll be reporting.
Then I would make.
Oh,
a
you
motion
want
to
that?
adjourn the finance committee.
Would you like the report from the nominating committee on the advisory board?
Not necessarily.
Or on the finance committee?
I think it would be on the full board. My
Yeah.
That's what I
bad.
thought.
So we have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all right. In favor, Mr. Beckerman,
Aye.
Mr. Connors,
Aye.
Mr. Reardon,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. We're adjourned. We can
All right.